message for you to help you get settled in on your first night.
Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Talking Smack, where we talk superheroes, movies, animation, comics, and so much more. I'm your host, Josh Scar, and I am joined by everyone's favorite non-autonomous furry cat, Alex. Alex, how you doing?
Fantastic. I'm excited. This is going to be a great show. This is going to be fantastic. I'm excited. Slade's here. Slade. Hi, Slade. I can't wait to see you, Slade.
I'm sorry, who's here?
Slade.
I still don't know who that is. Who is here?
Archibald?
Oh, Archie. Archie, yeah, Archie.
Hello. I sent a GIF earlier to explain how I feel at the moment. If you've watched, Always Sunny, and the Pepe Sylvia bit, that's how it feels at the moment. But I'm excited. This should be fun.
Yeah, I'm excited too. I have not done any research into this. I'm coming in as blind as I was with our Guilty Gear episode, but I was talking with Matt after recording last week's episode, and I do think we're going to make this lore of episode a thing, because we started talking about the insanity that is the Assassin's Creed lore, and I know a little bit about that because I played up through like Assassin's Creed 4, and that was just. Then Matt started telling me about other things, and I'm like, okay, no, this needs to be content.
Well, it's the fun of the series, right? If you look at the very first game, it's, spooky jump scares and nothing too much else. Thankfully, YouTube grabbed it and yeeted it forward. And so what I really want to know from you two, what do you know about Five Nights at Freddy's?
I know my nephews loved it about 5 years ago, and it's a spooky, scary game that's based around jump scares and a knockoff Chuck E. Cheese.
Right.
What I know, I've played the first 3-4 games, and from what I understand about the lore is that cosplayers love giving me confusion by dressing as sexy versions of all of them.
Right.
Because right around this time of the year, I start getting really confused of like, should I be attracted? I don't know. Do I want them to jump at me? Maybe.
Okay, so if I started naming people like William Afton, Henry Emily, Michael Schmidt, none of these names mean anything to you.
Were they people that were in the UK version of The Office?
No, they are people that are characters named in the game that are super important. They're going to be important for your movie-going experience, and maybe I'm just too deeply invested in, but I hear those names and all kind of alarm bells go off.
All right. Well, speaking of important people, Slade, first we got to hear from very important people named Joey, Tim, and Slade to tell everyone about the Game Club pod. So we'll be right back to talk about the lore of Five Nights at Freddy.
Join me, Joey, and my co-hosts,
Tim
And Slade.
at the Game Club podcast, where every 2 weeks we review video games not too dissimilar from a book club. Looking forward to seeing you there, idiots.
Yeah, you stupids.
Tim, do you want to jump in on this?
I will not bandwagon audience abuse.
Well, now that he's insulted us, let's get into it. Slade, you have brought your murder board with us, or along with you, to do what Tim has done previously, which is explain the insane lore of a niche game. So let's get into it. And that niche game / series is Five Nights at Freddy's.
I don't know if we could call it niche anymore, because it's kind of like common things. Like, I feel like everybody and their grandmother has at some point heard of Five Nights at Freddy's. They may not be, intricate to know all the mediocre melody names. They may not know who Ned Bear versus Fred Bear versus Golden Freddy is. But that's what I'm here for, because this is a rabbit hole. And my God, if there's a rabbit hole, I'm going to the bottom of it. Let's start with Scott Cawthon, right? The creator of this game. He's been an indie developer for a long time, since 1994. Didn't actually hit his stride, you could say, until 2014, when he made Five Nights at Freddy's, which was a last ditch effort. Scott, if you didn't know this, he was working as basically a cashier at a Dollar Tree and making games in his spare time, and then came with this unrelenting success that is the Five Nights at Freddy's franchise. Now you can buy pizzas at Walmart. There's toys. There's a total of 9 games with 4 spin-off games, 28 books, and a movie to come.
I thought the movie already came out and starred.
Well, probably by the release of this episode, it's
No.
almost here.
No, Nick Cage was in it last year. It was called Willy's Wonderland. It was fantastic.
They wish it's not FNAF. It's not Five Nights at Freddy's. So there's a bunch of mainline games. There's some games we don't ignore anymore because they mutter the waters a little too much. Scott is still with the writing process of the games, but it's now Steel Wool Studios who produced the recent VR and Security Breach games.
I would not play this game in a VR. No, thank you.
Let me tell you, it's definitely interesting to get to play this game in VR. And the reason I want to go and put this out here in the very beginning that Five Nights at Freddy's is so complicated is that Scott was going to give up on being a game developer, and this was going to be like the last thing he did, and he was just going to focus more on like his actually getting a job and work. So all the lore stuff being tried to like jam into it now is super complicated to fit back into. There was no whiteboard originally to tail off to where we are now. Right? So that is the big problem. I also kind of, I don't really know where to begin with this because it is complicated. Like we could start with Fredbear's Family Diner, right? As the first
Would
restaurant.
make sense. Sure.
Okay, yeah.
I feel like, again, I feel like Charlie did the Pepe Sylvia thing. If Tim's ranting didn't make sense, then Lord knows mine won't either. So let's start with Fredbear's Family Diner, where it all began with William Afton. William Afton came up with the idea of, people in costumes, see like, Walt Disney kind of idea. And the big thing, if for Walt Disney and his mascot costumes was that you had 5 fingers. That's like it makes it easier for them to interact with the kids. And,
4 fingers.
Is it 4 or 5?
It's 4.
I don't know anything about Disney. Anyways.
Yeah, the little backstory, just so it clicks. Maybe this was an unintentional coincidence. When my family has a tradition of taking kids on their 4th birthday to a Disney theme park, they will make note that the 4th birthday is special because they call the number 4 a mouse hand because they only have the 4 digits.
Gotcha. Well, apparently William Afton was better at making costumes because his had 5 fingers. So we start with that, and he basically ends up teaming up with a guy named Henry Emily to found it. And what Henry is really good at is making animatronics. That is what he is super good at. Now, what these suits have in the original, there's only 2 in there. There's a golden Bonnie the Bunny and a golden Fredbear costume. Now, that's important later, so make a little mental note of that. And they're filled with what's called spring locks. And what it is these tension, if you imagine like a little tension coil, right? You wind them back, and then you as a person can get in the suit and, pretend to be the animatronic, or we can put it on the stage and let the animatronics do their thing, right? It allows it to have both inside the suit at the same time. I'm looking at Alex, and he sees all the reasons that OSHA would have a big problem with this. Don't worry, this will be important later. All right, so from there, we start the expansion process in like the early 80s, right? Where it's starting to franchise out and become a bit of kind of like a cult following, you know what I mean? They're getting a couple restaurants, a couple different locations. And during this time, there's a death, and there's a death by that's caused by Michael Afton, not William. So Michael, the oldest son, was tormenting his younger brother, known as the Crying Child. And the Crying Child is called this because he's scared of all the animatronics, and you see Michael, jump scaring his little brother, just being a dickhead like older brothers tend to be, until his prank goes too far. And the prank goes too far by him and his friends shoving his younger brother, the Crying Child, into the mouth of one of the animatronics while he's performing on stage.
Makes complete sense.
Now,
Totally would do that.
Again, he kind of a bully, right? We could say this. And that animatronic spring locks malfunction because the child's head is in the mouth and it chomps down, killing the Crying Child. Or Gregory. He does have an actual name.
I'm sorry. Of course it would happen at that moment, right? Right.
So we have the first child to be killed, not on purpose, by an older brother being a dickhead to his younger brother.
Is this covered in a novel, or is this covered at some point in a game?
Yes.
Okay.
It's covered
I've seen Let's Plays of the first game, and it's literally just a survival horror game, essentially.
You say that, You say that, but it's not though. There's some stuff going on in the background of the first game where news clipping articles on, I think it's camera 4, will start changing, telling you about how the animatronics are oozing mucus and blood from the eyes and the mouths, right? But the first game doesn't take place in the first restaurant. Let's also be very clear about that. When I say this thing is a fucking mess, I genuinely mean it is a mess.
Okay, fair enough. Because that's that destroys any kind of understanding I had going into this. So let's continue. Crying child killed in mouth of bear due to bad spring.
Due to bad animatronics. Now William Afton gets really mad at Henry for this, right? Blaming not his oldest son, but Henry, the guy who made the animatronics, for this fault.
As one does.
Right. So as a father who's just lost his youngest son, he's, he turns to drinking and some other stuff, and he shows up outside the restaurant one night where Henry's daughter Charlotte was locked out of the restaurant by some other kids bullying her, and he brutally murders Charlotte.
So a drunk dad gets mad at the restaurant being locked up, so kills a random child standing outside.
No. He's mad at his business partner, so he kills his business partner's daughter.
I mean, fair play, I guess. I mean,
when it was his oldest son's fault and not the business partner, he blames the business partner's technology.
Right.
And this is how he takes revenge.
Now, why was she locked outside?
Other kids bullying her.
Okay, so they bullied her by keeping her outside. Yeah, okay.
Outside of the restaurant where you were having fun with your friends. They pushed her out and locked the door, essentially.
That tracks.
Okay. Oh, man, there's still so much. And I already feel like I'm wrong anyways, to be honest with you. And it's so much to go through. So as we go through with this, there's 2 killings at the restaurant. The restaurant is being essentially, people don't want to go there. They've heard about this. Its name's been, drugged through the water, that kind of thing. Which brings us into, what's a good way to go from here to here?
Well, I would like to know if this guy who randomly just murdered a child got arrested or anything.
No, there was no way they could tie William Afton back to the murders of the first child.
Shady security as well.
It happened. It happened outside of the building where there are no cameras or anything like that.
Because if someone were to come and throw a brick through your window, you wouldn't want to have video footage of that.
This was also back in the 80s. Let's mind you, it's not today where everybody's got a Ring doorbell camera. You know what I mean?
Businesses still had security.
I've seen Die Hard. They had lots of security cameras.
I'm sorry. Can we pause for half a second? My mom's calling me.
Yeah.
Sorry.
This feels appropriate for this kind of episode.
Oh, yeah.
Happy Halloween, everyone. All right, so the crying child murdered. Dad can't be proven.
Right.
Freddy's diner is going into disarray because rumors.
Well, it's not rumors. It's the actual fact of kids being murdered, and it goes around town and people are like, hey, you can't take your kids there, it's not safe.
Right.
I mean, I'm not a parent. Josh, you are, but if 2 kids got murdered in one place.
Oh yeah, we don't even go to our local mall anymore because shootings happen there every 2 or 3 weeks.
Right, exactly. So, it goes into disrepair, and it goes from Fredbear's family diner, kind of disappears for a couple of years, but then Henry revives the restaurant idea as Freddy Fazbear's Pizza.
Okay.
Henry being the business partner?
Henry being the business partner and the animatronic maker.
All right.
So there's 2 business partners you got to keep track of. One is William Afton, and the other one is Henry Emily.
Right. Afton is the murderer.
Yes.
Okay.
So we get to the first restaurant, right? And they want a overnight security guard, make sure, kids aren't hanging out too late, that kind of thing, because it's open fairly late. So they get an overnight security guard, and who else to apply but William Afton?
Oh, wow. Okay.
To take the role for himself. Yeah, right? Because, they're trying to get it back in the band going together, but he can't resist himself. He experienced, killing essentially for the first time. And it just kind of goes from there. But what do you do with the bodies after you murder a child? And the way he was doing that was he was using one of the old Springlock suits, Bonnie the Bunny. He would kill the kid, and then he would stuff him in one of the animatronic suits because they still had the cavity in there. Easy way to hide the bunny. Nobody notices because the things are gross because kids touch and on them all the time and everything. And the place smells because, it's kids. No one bats an eye.
Right, because the smell of children is the exact same smell as rot. Got it.
Well, when you got young, I would say toddlers, teenagers who don't bathe and stuff like that, the place has a funk to it.
Oh yeah.
The place has an odor, and that's one of the reasons the health department gets involved as well. On the side, William Afton is learning more about robotics, and basically he's got this pig. He's the one who came up with the idea, right, for Fredbear's Family Diner.
Yeah.
Henry animated it and made it come to life, and he's always been kind of jealous of Henry. Right, so he starts studying robotics and animatronics, trying to one up his basically business partner. Now, to paint a little picture of William Afton, think of like a rather big, robust guy. Laugh fills the room, little creepy looking, but slightly charismatic. That's our murderer. Now, the quiet, introverted one is Henry, the guy who makes the stuff, and especially after the killing of his only daughter, he's very, withdrawn. You would kind of think the opposite for who the killer is. Not the case. Now, I keep wanting to talk about Michael Afton, but we can't yet, so we still have to talk about William for a bit. William also starts what they call Five Nights at Freddy's sister location. This is also the title of one of the games, and basically it was like a rental service, right, where you could rent an animatronic. It would come to your house or whatever, for little Timmy's birthday party. And the problem with the sister location, as we'll refer to it as, is that it would also abduct children. Now, part of this is, now we have to go back a bit. You remember how the crying child was William Afton's youngest, right?
Uh-huh. Sure.
So he's been trying to essentially bring his son back to life the whole time. Make like a little, let's say, clone animatronic of his own son. And what he's realized is that there's a thing called Remnant. And again, let me know when I've lost y'all, because I believe I have. And Remnant is basically the end of your soul when everything's dead, and it gets infused with the metal of the animatronic.
All right.
And he's trying to make bring his, he's a grieving father. He keeps killing kids because he realizes this, and he's trying to remake his son, right? Problem is, there's 3 Afton children. We haven't talked about the middle child, his daughter, Emily.
Oh, dear.
Emily one day gets too close to an animatronic named Baby, and she gets kidnapped and killed inside of that one.
Okay, how does she get kidnapped and killed inside of that one?
Ooh, do you want to know how that works?
Yes, because thus far, it sounds like he's just killing people overnight, stuffing them into suits. The place smells.
Right, he was doing that until he was trying to figure out the whole Remnant scenario. I have to go through him killing people. That's why he was doing it.
Okay.
Right.
And there's a secondary location, people are disappearing.
Right, so he designs his own animatronics with basically the stomach section of him.
Okay.
Has a nice, for lack of better words, a little grabby hand, which will grab the child, pull it inside, and there's a child storage containment center in the center of the animatronic.
Makes sense.
Well, there's actually blueprint schematics of it in the 5th game of how this whole situation works, right?
All right.
Right. So this happens, and then he ends up going back to the original restaurant location.
I want to know the mental state of the person who had to create that blueprint.
Talking about Scott Cawthon? No telling with the fact that he's done all this other stuff. How we doing, Josh?
I mean, I think I'm following, but I'm getting caught up in like the creation aspect of it, where it's like, I need to create a schematic of an animatronic that has a grabby hand that will pull in a child and kill it. Seems normal.
Now, part of this is, so this whole Remnant theory, and you can see that William is, kind of deeply invested in this. And again, I'm giving the big Cliff Notes version of the story.
Right.
So he goes back to the first restaurant, and he starts dismantling the original animatronics, where at the time he was also hiding. He's hid, look, there's a lot of dead kids. We're not going to go into the body count, but there's a lot of dead kids. So he's luring the animatronics into what is known as the back rooms, right? And it's the one place, like, so basically their circuitry, and you don't want to really kind of call it AI at the time, but it lets them only go in certain parts of the restaurant and the building. And there's like a blacked out area, which is just for the employees. So this way they're not in danger of the animatronics, which obviously if you work in this place, you're in a lot of danger anyway. but he lures them back there and dismantles them. As he's dismantling them, the ghosts of the original kids that he murdered, the first 5. Now, notice I say first 5. Like I said, there's a lot of dead kids in this story. They end up as ghosts cornering him, right? Now, he's in this old restaurant. It's dilapidated, and the roof is kind of falling in, and there's water dripping through the building. So what does he do? He does the only logical thing that you could do. He hops in the old golden Bonnie suit that he started killing the kids in the first place, and it's full of spring locks. 2 things you need to know about spring locks. One is that a lot of jarring and movement will set them off. The other thing is that moisture will set them off. So he gets spring locked. All the metal circuitry tries to take the place where his body is supposed to be. And if you think he's dead, you're very wrong. So this is where the son the son Michael comes into play, right? His dad's been gone a couple days, and he's, it's not unlike his father to be gone or just in his workshop for a while, but like this is an odd amount of time. But he has like instructions on what to do if his father's been gone for too long.
And Michael is the murder son, right?
Yes. Michael is also the one who killed his little brother.
That's what I meant. Yeah, murder son.
Yeah.
Not murderer's son.
right. The accidental murdering son. He's only killed one child. His father at this point's probably killed like 40 or 50. Now, Michael Afton ends up going to his father's workshop and finds out there's a whole subterranean area below the house where his dad has been working on these things. And that's the first time. And we have to remember Michael's kind of mental state here. He is one of the characters you know of from Five Nights at Freddy's 4. He's going through like hallucinogenics. He not like the drugs, but just in the face of bereavement, kind of being haunted by what he did to his little brother. And he's the one who ends up stumbling across the sister location, as we named earlier. And then suddenly finding out what dear old dad has been up to this whole time.
And let me guess, he's all in?
No, he's not.
Oh, okay. Surprise.
He's not all in. He's not all in. He is the one that if you play through the games and you'll notice it says place burnt down at the end of your 1 week of working there.
Yeah.
I know the name of the game is Five Nights at Freddy's, but really it's a week long because there's 2 extra nights. And at the end of the night, if you notice, each place burns to the ground.
Oh.
That's Michael's doing. That's Michael trying to
atone for his
atone
sins.
And kind of do away with all of his father's stuff.
Oh, okay.
Which is pretty cool at the end of the day. Again, we're going through speed running cliff notes of it. Now, if we hop over a couple of games to Ultimate Custom Night.
Okay.
Or no, I'm sorry, not Ultimate Custom Night. We have to stop first at Freddy Fazbear's Pizza Simulator. The name is kind of on the nose. Michael's been working these security jobs and burning the restaurants down at the end of the night. He stumbles across this place.
Wait, so are we Michael the player?
Yes.
Oh, okay. I did not know that. I thought
you play as Michael Afton. Other characters are named. They are not real names. They're names that he's making up as he works there.
Oh, okay. So he stumbled across his father's work. He's like, "What the heck?" And now, to atone for it, you the player are Michael, trying to get through this so that you can burn the place to the ground.
Yep.
Cool.
And release the souls of the dead kids so that they can be at peace.
So that raises the question of why does it take a week for him to be able to do this? Why can't he just like get hired and burn it down after one night?
Well, one would think, but he's sitting, I guess, in the long and short
There's
of
no
it.
Story in that. There's no game in that sense.
Right, exactly. Long and short of it, where's the gameplay? One night at Freddy's? Are you kidding me? Now, if you notice as the games go on, more and more characters get involved, right? Like, so let's take the first game, for example. Your first night, you only have to worry about Bonnie the Bunny. Second night, you got to worry about Bonnie and Foxy. Third night, Bonnie, Foxy, and Chica. You see what I mean? Like, characters stack, right? So when he gets to the end of his week, everybody's there. And that's when you need to burn it down.
So he's luring everybody in so he can do a big thing all at once,
Ooh,
right?
That's a good phrasing to move on into Pizzeria Simulator. Its name is kind of on the nose, too. So Henry builds this place because he sees what's going on, right? Outside of what Michael is doing. He sees what's going on. So Henry builds a fake restaurant to lure all the animatronics in, to burn it all down for good and to be done with it. Ends up, just by coincidence, hiring Michael.
Of course.
Right. And part of this is a big section called paragraph 4 of the employee contract in this game. Paragraph 4 states that if you find any animatronics outside in the dumpster, you have to bring them in the building. Now, these weren't thrown away from the place. These are just animatronics coming, they see what's going on. They just show up.
And hang out in the dumpster?
Yeah, and then you bring them inside, which also makes the
really-
game harder by doing that. You can make the game really easy by leaving them all outside.
So is there a reason why they come and hang out in the dumpster?
They're being drawn to the spirits of the other kids.
That are in the dumpster?
Not in the dumpster, in the building. They're trying to get in. They don't know how. You just find them out back by the dumpster because that's where the employee entrance is.
Oh, okay, that makes more sense. I was like, do they not know there's a front door? But no, if they think they're employees and they go in through the back and they can't get in the back, and so
right,
and
you have little kids, being or possessing these things too. You got to use like kid logic sometimes.
Right. Yeah.
Now Michael goes through all this. He gets everybody, even dear old dad, in the spring locked costume inside this building.
Wait, okay. So dad is alive. How is dad alive?
Dad is alive by sheer spite. That's the best way I can describe that.
I've done many things out of spite. So yeah,
by sheer spite. So you even get dear old dad in there, and then Henry burns it all to the ground. And there's this lovely little speech from Henry saying, "Volunteer, I don't know who you are, but I'm pretty sure you are right where you're supposed to be."
Okay, so Henry is the partner whose daughter, who the first child was killed. He has now. Have these places all been like active this whole time? Like,
no.
Have they not been closed down? Have they ever? Has the health department closed any of them down?
How many restaurants do you want to know about?
I'm just general number. Like there's like what, 5?
Kind of. So you have Fredbear's Family Diner, which is the OG, right? That's the first one,
right? And that got closed down. And
Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria. You have Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria, the new location. You have Freddy Fazbear Frights, which was a location that was supposed to be like think of it like a horror house, right?
Yeah.
Based on the murders of the kids and whatnot, a very cheap and poorly faced attraction. It also got burnt to the ground. There's Circus Baby's Pizza World. It's a part of it.
I'm not going there.
Well, that's part of the sister location. There's Chica's Party World, which was Henry trying to do his own thing, and that one also got ruined by the Aftons. And then you have the Freddy Fazbear's Pizza Simulator.
Okay.
Which it's not a real restaurant or anything. It is just somewhere that Henry was trying to gather up all loose ends.
So that game happens. It's all burned to the ground. The spirits are released.
Yep.
Is dad still in the costume? Is he going to jail?
Ooh, so is dad still in the costume? So dad also got burnt to the ground.
Good.
But the kids' spirits that he murdered won't let him die. And so that's when we get into Ultimate Custom Night, which is the hardest of all the Five Nights at Freddy's games. All nearly 60 characters at this point are in that game with a difficulty level setting of 1 through 20.
All right.
It's one of the, I think it is like objectively the hardest Five Nights at Freddy's game. There's a full like 2020 mode where all of them are set to the hardest. And that's worth a look up to watch somebody try to beat every single one of those at level 20. It is wild to watch the muscle memory.
I thought you were going to say there's the 2020 mode, which is that there's a pandemic going on. And so you have to quarantine and clean the restaurant while trying to.
Oh, that might be worse having to clean up the mess of the dead kids. But so that's where Ultimate Custom Night comes in. And basically it is good old William Athen being haunted by the souls of his past. And that's a fun game to play just for the Easter egg dialogue, which you can also find on YouTube, like all of them. Like basically just giving huge lore dumps, big explanations, being like, you shouldn't have killed this one. Here's why this is happening to you. It is just lore dump galore, and it's glorious in every way. Now, there's one other Afton we haven't spoken of.
The middle child, right?
The daughter.
No, we talked about the daughter. Remember, she got killed and scooped up by Baby. That's where.
Right. I'm confusing the two. So Afton is the animatronic person.
Yeah, no, that's Henry is the animatronic person. Or are you talking about? Okay, so William Afton, big murderer, right?
Yes,
that's
He's
daddy.
got 2 sons and a daughter. Obviously,
right. One son got eaten. The other son is you.
Right.
Yeah, and the daughter.
But you know who we haven't talked about? Dear old mom. Where's mom?
Oh, okay. Oh, okay.
Where's mom? Well, after both the Afton men are, now dead, suddenly she's getting all the copyright stuff and the ownership to Freddy Fazbear's. And that's where the newer games of Security Breach and Help Wanted come into play.
Okay.
So this is years later. She's trying to revive it, but she starts with asking some developer named Steve to make some video games.
Nah.
Right? So we came full circle.
Okay, so we're going meta.
We're going very meta. We're going very meta. This franchise gets very meta a lot. But we come full circle. And basically in the games, right? Well, not I say in the games. So let's start with the Help Wanted, right? The VR title. They basically get the people who's doing this, the VR game, to go to the locations, just see what they can find, take some picture, kind of like normal video game when you're basing off a real life location, little scavenger tour, I guess you could say. Like before Fallout 4 came out, people saw the Bethesda team going out and taking photos in Boston. Right. This is, when you're doing like real life stuff like this is very not uncommon for it to happen. But they also happen to pick up some animatronic suits and the circuitry out of them. Man, and wouldn't you know, there happened to be a gold bunny suit. That circuitry was still pretty intact. And it contained the spirit leftover of William Afton. Now, William Afton ends up getting downloaded, for lack of better words, into the game itself. Somebody was play testing it. William tried to take over their body. Dude wasn't having it, and he cut his own face off with a what do you call it, a little paper guillotine?
Paper cutter?
Well, yeah, but the really big one that can cut like 40 pages at a time, like a paper guillotine. He ends up slicing his own face off to kill himself. Right, because he didn't want to be a part of it. He didn't want to be a part of this. But William finally finds his victim in a woman named Vanessa. Now, that name is very important later on, especially in the movie. Makes me very concerned. And he basically takes her over, and that's where you get Vanny the Bunny. Not very good name play, mind you, Vanessa, but here we are. She is now our roaming killer in a bunny suit.
She's in an actual bunny suit. She's not an animatronic.
Yeah, she's just in a poorly homemade bunny suit.
Oh.
Right, because dear old dad can't give up the rabbit fetish no matter what happens.
Oh.
Now, if we get into the newest game, which is Security Breach, right? Security Breach has a lot of continuity stuff that makes things very confusing, and I kind of don't want to touch on it with the DLC coming out soon.
Yeah, now we're getting confusing.
Yeah.
I don't want to add to it because a lot of people think that the crying child, you play as the crying child in that game, but it's a animatronic that's supposed to be the crying child made by the bereaving mother. And that the soul of Michael William has taken over Glam Rock Freddy because he's trying to protect his little brother instead of scaring him.
Okay.
And the fact that, Springtrap, for lack of better words, is back in the game as one of the enemies. Right. So that's a different can of worms I don't want to touch, but I hope I've cleared some things up in the Five Nights at Freddy's universe.
Okay. So that does make sense. I guess my question would be, so where are they going with now? I mean, if the locations are burned down, but Vanessa apparently wants to play.
Right.
Well, are they still building these places?
Well, Afton Robotics as a company still exists, making different robotics for different companies, which allows them the funding to do this kind of stuff.
Okay.
Think of it as like the evil mega corporation. And it's also the one location Michael might have forgotten to burn down.
So, all right. So those are the games. Now, you say there's 28 books. From my understanding, there are 3 books that were actually mainly written by the creator.
Yes. There's, 4 total, really.
Okay. What is is that how a lot of this stuff gets explained? Is that where a lot of the canon is?
The canon takes place in not only the games, but those 4 books. And now The big debate is the rest of the books, so the other 24, are mostly like goosebump stories.
Okay.
But there's a last chapter in each one of the books, and that last chapter is going on about Michael in his just robotic state hunting kids. So so that's part of keeping the books canon. There's also stuff in the books that highly relate to the games as well. So
Okay.
their canonicity is kind of a coin toss.
Okay.
Some stories are, some stories are not. It's not a good answer, to be honest.
So if you say so if you say these miscellaneous books are goosebumpy, are they what, like kids who are like running from the animatronics and sometimes they get away and sometimes they don't?
Sometimes, other times they are kids who murder their therapists, but then that kid turns out to be an animatronic. Or sometimes it is it gets really weird. It gets really weird. Sometimes there's a shark named Felix, and we've jumped that metaphorical shark named Felix at this point. All right.
Okay, so all right, let's not take the two weird the really weird goosebumpy books.
There's a lot of weird
But-
ones.
Okay, but the main four, which are like
Right.
what, like the fourth door,
The fourth closet, the
the
silver eyes,
silvery eyes.
and there's another one I'm forgetting the name of at the moment.
Okay, are those
Canon, yes.
adult books? Like, and not, I mean, no adult books, but are those like
They tell
Are they-
they tell a complete story,
okay?
but for like a trilogy. So yes,
Are they good?
they're okay. I'd give them like a 6.5, 7 out of 10. You know, not
Okay.
the best, not the worst. It is a page turner at least.
All right. Do they in fact jump scare you?
No, it's a book. They don't jump scare you well. There's a big plot twist in the fourth closet, which I don't want to give away if anybody does read it. There's a big plot twist that you find out about one of the main characters.
All right, so you've intrigued me with talking a little bit about the movie. Let's get into that before we wrap up here. Is the movie just a retelling of the lore, or is it actually like built into the lore?
So I got some notes here from the trailers that we've seen, right? There's a couple things about the movie that to me kind of red flaggish about how obviously the story doesn't care about a timeline or continuity sometimes. So let's talk about the first thing that's really big to bring up is the police officer who shows up in the trailer and who knows way too much about the Freddy Fazbear building. Her named
Okay.
character, according to IMDb, is Vanessa. Right? This is a character.
Oh.
If this building is supposed to be based off the first location, why is she here? She's not here until like 9 games later, right?
Okay.
Right? That's so I think they're kind of merging some stuff to make a cohesive movie narrative while ignoring other things.
All
Mike
right.
Schmidt, right? Not an actual person. It's supposed to be Michael Afton, but they've made this a character with a little sister.
Okay.
So the security guard in the movie is named Michael Schmidt. That is the name, quote unquote, of the character you play as in the first game, but it's not the actual person.
All right.
Another thing, it's a little detail in the background. There are posters of Nebraska, right? Which is kind of weird, but because all the stories really take place in Utah.
Oh, do they?
Yes, just a little
Okay.
thing to point out. It's a little detail, but I think it's important to notice. What I can see, obviously the movie's not out yet, but it lines up with the first game before we start having a couple hundred dead kids hanging around. Right. Okay. So it lines up with that. Makes me wonder about, I've talked about Remnant, the human soul being infused with metal. Reason this
Right.
is you need to pay attention with the eye color of the animatronics, right? That's, at least to me,
Okay.
is very important. The main four, Foxy, Bonnie, Chica, and Freddy, have a very similar eye color. The cupcake doesn't. But also, you see Golden Bonnie, who doesn't have the same eye color as the rest of them. I feel like that's going to be important. 5 kids, right? At one point in the trailer, you see the 5 kids scatter off. That matches with the first 5 kids murdered. Checks out. That's pretty good. We do get William in the yellow Bonnie costume, but the Bonnie costume that we're all really familiar with for the yellow one isn't disheveled and tattered, and you can tell it's been in a closet for so many years, and it's still in good condition, which is also a curiosity in itself. Also, the character that Matthew Illard is playing is named as William Afton, but in the trailer you see him being a career counselor named with like a different name. which that would also line up with, you're asking me about the 3 main books. That's not the first time William Afton has had a job and gone under a different name to keep an eye on the restaurant that was so near and dear to him.
Okay.
Right. So now you see what I mean by I think they're drawing from like a lot of different things to get inspiration for this horror movie.
But they're trying to make it a singular narrative, at least for the first movie.
Right. That's what I'm thinking. And, I'm excited to see where it goes. I'm fine with it. This franchise is such a big, muddy water of lore and information. I'm only scratching this. Like, if we were looking at an iceberg, I'm only like, we haven't gone underwater. We're still up top.
Okay. So the crying child,
Yes.
did they ever bring the crying child like back to life?
So
Because
that
of
is
the remnant stuff?
yes. So that's Gregory that you play as in Security Breach. You play as Gregory, who is the crying child reincarnated.
Okay. So in this universe,
Yep.
if you kill enough children, you can bring back one of them.
Yes.
All right. So we have confirmed reincarnation.
Yep.
All right.
But it doesn't always work.
Is it like a monkey's paw kind of situation?
Well, so it depends on a couple of things, right? Like you can only use good old Willy Boy makes the mistake of trying to infuse too many kids at one time, and it makes a rogue animatronic that almost kills him. Obviously, this dude's pretty hard to kill, and that's saying something if even he's like, damn, I shouldn't have done that. But if you do like one at a time, you'll get better results. If you try to kill like 12 kids at once and mix them together, you'll basically make what was the name of that animatronic? It does have an actual name. No, not Yenzo.
Okay.
It'd be Ennard. That's the name of that one.
All right. So I guess my big question about this is going to be, in my naivete, these are mostly just jump scare games that, had a clever hook of, you have to hide in the room and look at the monitors to catch them before they came after you.
Right.
And I know there's some mini games because I accidentally unlocked some mini games a few times. I'm like, why am I doing this? And those seemed interesting because they seem to have lore or
Right.
meaning behind them. But what the hell is the appeal of this franchise other than hot cosplayers during October?
Well, I think the appeal of let's just say playing the games in the first place, right? I'd say playing the games is that, most people have a fight or flight mentality of, either I need to fight or run away. But when you take those abilities away from somebody, you have a pretty cool, like, primary gameplay loop inside of that. There's the challenge of it. There's also, we can't ignore the Let's Player, like, thing of it, right? Because we've talked about it on the Game Club before. Like, I think part of this popularity of this game is like from, PewDiePie, Markiplier, Jacksepticeye. If you're a 10-year-old watching an adult scream while playing a game, haha, very funny. Now I want to play it. And, kids have a lot of time to just go through a rabbit hole, really read and play things for hours and hours on end, where adults really don't. I think that's also a part of the appeal. I also think inherently kids like creepy things. This franchise has been around for 8-9 years now. So, I think it's going to be one of those that's here to stay.
Is the gameplay loop basically the same for all the games? Because
no.
When does it, I guess then if that's the case, when does it split off of going from you're in the little security room to having something different?
Right. Okay. So first 3 games, you're in the security room, right?
Yeah.
4th game, Five Nights at Freddy's 4, you are, well, it's kind of debated if you're the crying child or Michael, but you're in a bedroom.
Okay.
Right. So you're in a bedroom and the core mechanics are still there. So like you're a kid in bed, you have a flashlight, you hear spooky things going on. That game you could about play blindfolded because the sound design is so good.
Okay.
And you have to either close your closet door or close bedroom door A or B, right? They're off to the right and left, which doesn't make sense for a kid's bedroom to have 2 doors, but even my bedroom at my house has 2 doors. And that's like the gameplay loop of it. Sister location, you could start moving around freely. There are some points, where you're kind of like stuck having to sit still and do certain things, but there's freedom of movement. Like there's one point in Sister location that you're lied to and you're told by the AI voice, like, hey, you need to sprint through this area while it's dark so Foxy doesn't get you, when actually you need to go through slowly and quietly as you walk through the room, right? It's a big lie and misconception. Now, if we head back to the next 2 games after that, you're once again sitting in the room, but there's stuff to be done while you're sitting there. You can't really run away or anything like that. Head over to the VR game. You get the movement of VR. You can walk around. You do have to play the first 3 games in it. So at some points, you're just standing still and having to be the security guard.
Okay.
And then in the newest one, Security Breach, it's a full roaming action game. You get to walk around, enjoy the whole Pizzaplex.
That's the one where you're playing as the reincarnated child.
Ah, look, you're keeping up. You're keeping up.
Okay.
Yeah. Look at Alex. Alex has it figured out. There's also there was like a 16-bit RPG called FNAF World at one time, but that one has kind of been abandoned and no one really counts it or talks about it anymore.
Oh.
Yeah, it had such fun things as Freddy Fazbear in space.
So we have books.
Yep.
We have video games. We have a movie that's supposed to be coming out in forever, but the creator was not happy with it, junked it a bunch of times.
Right.
We have the unofficial Nick Cage version of this stuff, which how sad is it going to be if that movie's better than this one?
Extremely sad, but I think this one's going to do just fine. I mean, the animatronics, from what I've seen, look tremendous. Like, it looks like they've done a great job with it.
Well, I mean, you got Jim Henson's people on it. That's going to do it.
Right. They've done such a tremendous job with how again, this is all for us movie sight unseen. But I hope what I've done now is giving y'all some names and things to be on the lookout for.
Huh.
Yeah, which the movie should be coming out in 2 days' time on the 27th of October, which this episode will release on the 25th. So you should have a basic understanding of everything. If you wanted to go in unspoiled and now you're just like, oh shit, what am I doing listening to this lore episode? Sorry, not sorry.
Maybe you're more confused now. You listen to this and you're like, what the fuck is going on?
Yeah, there you go.
It's worth the rabbit hole deep dive if you have the time, you know?
Yeah. So do you enjoy still playing them? I mean, you said there's 28 books and you seem to know a lot about them. Have you do you have a stack off to the left of the camera over there where you have your 179 Goosebumps books and then your 28 Five Nights at Freddy's ones?
No, I have them on Audible. I don't get time to read much, so I have them on Audible. So I've listened to all of them.
Would the first 3, or like, I guess the official 3, be worth reading? What is it? The Silver Eyes, the Twisted Ones, the Fourth Closet?
Yes. So if you want to know more basically about the franchise and the games and really important named characters, it's a good place to start.
Are they gory?
Sometimes.
Okay.
Sometimes. Not always. There's a lot of slow pacing in it, but it's slow pacing with the build, if that makes sense.
All right. Well, I'm still not playing them because I don't like horror. You guys can have fun with it. But Slade, before we get out of here, let everyone know where they can find you.
Oh, that's excellent. They can find me all over at Slade Plays Games on Twitter, Twitch, AnyList. You can find me at Blue Sky at Slade Plays Games with a Z because I still can't be bothered to change that. And, now I'm just MLG Gamer with it. You can also find me at the Game Club Pod, where once every 2 weeks we discuss video games not too dissimilar to a book club. I also have a side series on that called Between Two Pods, where you can hear Alex for half of it and Josh for all of it. I did an episode with Talking Smack, and it was really good.
And don't forget to join our Discord. You can find that in the episode description. You can also find us on all social media platforms that we are a part of at Talking Smack Pod. Blue Sky, Instagram, Threads, Hive Social, Post News, Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, and of course Lonnie's website. Email us your thoughts, questions, concerns, suggestions at tsmackpod@gmail.com. And then Alex, who's playing that wonderful music you hear in the background?
That would be Scott's Games, because he refuses to let anyone talk about Five Nights at Freddy's without his permission.
Please like, subscribe, rate, review the podcast on your podcatcher of choice. And most importantly, thanks everyone so much for listening. Take care. And watch Star Trek.
Watch Attack on Titan. Better choice.